we talked a little bit about the Horsemen. Did you see the Horsemen? Basically, the whole, I guess, gimmick of the Horsemen. Did you see it taken off? Did you see it was going to go as good as it went?
See it evolve, yeah. And it was a great idea, and as it really started coming to pass, I was thrilled to see it happen. Of course, because for one thing, when Dusty and I teamed up as the Superpowers, we had quite a few matches, quite a few 8-man matches with the Superpowers and the Road Warriors against the Four Horsemen. In fact, a memorable match there would have been in Landover, Maryland. The first time we went into one of the first times into that part of Vince's territory. And it was around the July 4th era or time frame, and I don't think anybody thought we were going to draw just coming in for the very first time the NWA and with the holidays. But we put 23,000 plus people in that building that night, and we had a cage match against them guys, and I tell you, the people were for 23 minutes were on their feet. They never sat down. And again, how strong the angle got over, they were chanting Nikita, Nikita for the entire time till I finally got in the ring. We milked it for 10, 15 minutes before I ever even got in the ring. And when I finally got that tag, boy, the place just erupted. And the Horsemen, with as well as that angle got over, they really carried it to a new level.
Right. Which Horseman did you like to work with the best? Tully, Arn.
Well, I have memorable matches really against all of them. I enjoyed tremendously working with Arn Anderson, with Tully Blanchard, Luger when he was one of the Horsemen. Probably one of the most difficult guys to work with was Ole Anderson, but that's only because that's Ole. And hey, Ole, I like you, man. And then of course Flair. I mean, whether it was a single, a tag, a 6-man, or an 8-man. I don't think we had a bad match that I can remember, no matter who it was against. So I enjoyed working with all of them.
Right. Around the time the World Wrestling Federation was gaining popularity, Vince was eating up all the small territories and stuff like that. What was the vibe in the locker room as far as maybe catching up or, you guys were basically head to head. Vince was number 1 and Crockett was number 2. Was there ever a sense of becoming number 1?
Yeah, and and there were times when we were on the verge of doing that. I know there was a breaking point at one time for Vince where there was, like, as he has told the story, it was all or nothing. I got to put all of it into this, and hopefully it's going to take off for me. When we went into some of his markets the first time, like Philadelphia, like Landover, like Baltimore, Boston, they weren't used to our type of wrestling, and we always said we're wrestling, we're different, and they weren't used to that. And I can remember in Philadelphia. I can remember, the fans, we'd be out there wrestling 20, 30. Flair, I'd wrestle 45 minutes was about my average match with Ric Flair. And 2-hour television show, you don't see 34 minutes from what I understand now. That's with all the matches. But I wrestled 45 minutes. I can remember the people saying, chanting boring, boring, boring. But, within about 6 or 7 months of conditioning them to our style of wrestling, we'd be in town the same night in Philadelphia that Vince was. Yeah. They'd have 10,000 people over at their building. We'd have 10,000 over at our building, and the people just started really, really, understanding our psychology of our business and really buying into it. And so it was really, the dressing room attitude was, we can do this. We can build up to 10,000 people. When we first went to Philly, it might have been 1,000, but within months we built up to 10,000. And so we knew we could do it. We knew we could compete because we had a product that was different, and we believed in ourselves, and we proved that.
What do you think happened to Jim Crockett's promotion as far as eventually sold it to Ted Turner and Turner took over? What do you think led to the downfall? Was it that a lot of people we interviewed said that he spent a lot of money on expenses as far as like the plane, the jet, and
That seems to be the general consensus. I think what happened, a couple things. The Crockett Promotions was a mom and pop organization, and they did tremendously well over the years. They thrived over the years, and they bought the 2 planes, they bought the jet, they bought the Gulfstream. Was not a bad idea at all. In fact, I loved it. Man. I was home every night. Matches were over on the private plane and back home. It was fantastic as opposed to driving 2,500 miles a week. Where it started getting a little carried away was when we'd fly from Charlotte to Columbia, which was a 90-mile drive, or Charlotte to Greenville, South Carolina, which was about a 110-mile drive, or Charlotte to Fayetteville. And so it started getting a little extreme. Now, did I complain? Well, no, I was on a plane. But that in combination with what I would say would be the bookkeeping, because the way I understand it is, it wasn't until about 7 or 8 months into the indebtedness that the red flag really went up and said, hey, we're several millions into debt here. And, you can point the finger and say, well, it was the CPA. He should have known. He should have hired a more versed CPA. Well, you can point the finger at a lot of people, but the fact of the matter is it did happen. There was probably some unnecessary spending that took place without really realizing that it was happening.
Right. I guess at the time, a lot of guys like Tully and Narn eventually went over to Vince when the changeover happened. There was cutbacks on people's contracts and stuff like that. Did you feel threatened at any time?
No, not really. And, there was what happened. Of course, there was a transition with me in there when all of that was happening. And many know the story because it was written up in the wrestling magazines. I had a wife that died of cancer. And so I walked away from the business to take care of my wife. There are many different opinions on that. Some thought I should have been loyal to the wrestling business, and why wasn't wrestling first? And so there's opinions both ways. But I just felt in my heart that family was first, and I needed to take care of a dying wife. And so that was all in that same transition when Turner was starting to buy it, the company. And I went to the corporate guys and I explained to them the situation. Said, I'm not saying I won't ever be back, but this is something that I have to do. And so, you could tell the face of it was going to change though when it went from a mom and pop company to now corporate America stepping in to own it.
Right. Before that time, Jim Crockett bought some of the UWF. Well, Bill Watts basically sold his promotion over to Jim Crockett. When those guys came in, I've asked a lot of guys this. Do you think Crockett missed a boat as far as doing an inter-promotional angle with the UWF guys? Instead, he basically buried a lot of the guys.
Yeah, and I don't know. Of course, I can't speak for Jim and knowing what his thinking was there. And I always said I didn't know why he was buying it to begin with. Like Vince would go into a territory and start running shows. I thought, why shell out the money to buy it? I mean, I guess he just felt it was the right thing to do, just like he did the same thing in St. Louis with that market. He purchased the territory. And in one sense, I respect him for doing that. I think he had respect for the old promoters who used to own those, like Bill Watts and the guys who used to own the territories. Why he did that, I don't know if that was just Jim's way of saying, look, I'm running the show here or what.
Watch thousands of exclusive shoot interviews right now on TitleMatchNetwork.com.